Did the recording start? Yes. Good day, everybody. The recording has started. Welcome, everyone. First of all, let me re-share my screen so that I can see the presentation again. Someone else had started sharing. Okay, can anybody else who started sharing stop doing that? Okay, let me try to get the screen back. Yes. Okay, I can see that the presentation is back. So welcome everyone, and thanks for attending this webinar. Well, first of all, as already indicated in the chat for those who logged on early, please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be published afterwards. The presentation deck will also be shared. So please mute your microphone and hide your video. And please also feel welcome to post your questions in the chat. Alice will monitor these questions, Alice Droogmans, and we will answer as many questions as we can, either during the presentation, if it is like an informative question, or later during the Q&A session at the end of the session. Because the program that we had for this workshop, which you have seen on the website, is that I'm now opening it up. And also, I would like to thank Kadi Kenk from the Responsible Business Forum from Estonia and Alice Droogmans from WeSustain for co-organizing this event. Then in a few minutes, I will give a presentation and then we will be interactive and close at 4:30. So first about the organizers of this meeting, a special thanks, like I said, also to all participants from the Responsible Business Forum in Estonia, and in particular to Kadi Kenk for triggering the organization of this workshop by relaying your interest in the Circularity Check. Actually, we were already thinking for a long time of having another webinar on the Circularity Check, and this was like the perfect reason to go ahead with it, and also to focus on a larger group than we did before, not just on the SMEs as primary users of this check, but also on all kinds of accelerators who are actively working with SMEs and companies. Now, before going on, can you maybe say a few words, Kadi, on behalf of the Business Forum?
Yes, thank you so much. I am Kadi from the Estonian Responsible Business Forum, working currently on circular issues in the framework of our Responsible Business Index. We're super happy for this collaboration, that we're able to provide our members, but also other stakeholders, the chance to learn how to assess circularity in their business models or teach how others could do that. Which is super important, both to help Estonia as a country to achieve its targets within the EU with the help of businesses, but also to get valuable feedback in how businesses could perform even better, especially since circularity is an important element in our National Responsible Business Index that aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we all know cannot be achieved without the participation of the businesses or the understanding of circularity. So I hope all of you will very much enjoy the training. Feel free to reach out to me should you wish to know more about how we work, about our members, reaching out to other participants, collaborating, and yeah, enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will try to get back to the presentation again. And let me see on my small screen if that works. Yes, it works. Okay, so thank you. And Alice I will get the floor in a moment. First, the next slide I would like to show that is about Ecopreneurs, because what is Ecopreneur? Ecopreneur is the political voice for sustainable business in Europe, especially for SMEs. And why is that important? Because 40% of all regulations in the member states comes from the EU, and 30,000 lobbyists are defending the linear economy for the regular multinationals. And we're getting more and more influential, for instance, on introducing extended producer responsibility for textiles, and also we're very happy with many initiatives presented in the European Green Deal. But we're still the only cross-sectoral business organization advocating strong sustainability policies at the EU level, although I'm very happy to say that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation over the past week is starting to join our calls in that. Then we are a business federation, so we represent these 3,000 SMEs in 6 member states. Our goal is the circular economy. And we also have a focus on the low carbon circular economy and sustainable finance. We will shortly start on a new product on life cycle assessments. And we currently have 6 members that you see on the screen in Germany, France, Austria, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Sweden. I saw our member from Sweden is also in the call. Very welcome. And also, I would like to say that we really hope that Estonia, the Business Forum from Estonia, will become a member soon. Also, what we do is that we published several publications last year, including one on all EU member states and how is circular economy doing there, and also one on circular fashion. We're also working with TNO to get more EU-funded projects. So just last thing about Ecopreneur, what are our key messages to the EU? First of all, to enable the full potential of SMEs. Second, to implement economic incentives to create low carbon circular markets. Then to provide much more innovation funding and subsidies. And finally, to implement progressive EU legislation. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Alice. Alice, can you come to you turn on your microphone and screen? Okay, well, if that turns out to be a problem at this moment, I think that we just wait until Alice is back and I can continue the presentation and then go back. What I can say already is that WeSustain collaborated with Ecopreneur, MVO Nederland in 2018 to support to create this circularity check, and they programmed it for free and put it online, because before that it was just an Excel sheet, and also their system is guaranteeing that all your data is completely safe and protected within the whole environment. I'm waiting for when Alice can log on again. I just continue now for the presentation. So first of all, before we start with the circularity check, I want to give a short introduction to get us all on the same foot. I guess most of you already know what a circular economy is, but maybe not everybody. And how do you view it? There are so many perspectives. Well, the way that we see it is how organizations create, deliver, exploit, and preserve value for tomorrow's economy via circular business models, to design out waste, not to recycle it only, but to designing it out. So materials can stay in the cycle or become food for nature. Also important is to change responsibility from consumer to user, and also from sustainable obligation to economic desire. And in this respect, I guess many of you will already have seen the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's butterfly, as it's called, the butterfly scheme. But just in 2 sentences, the circular economy consists of 2 parts. One, the techno cycle, where materials are recycled and reused in the loop, and one, the biocycle, where materials can enter nature after cascading and can then go back into the loop. And if you look at the way that, for instance, MVO Nederland looks into, MVO Nederland is our Dutch member with 2,000 member companies. Is that, Alice, is that you? I hear somebody.
Hey, hello.
Ah, okay, there you are. Let me try to stop sharing my screen and get you on screen. Is that, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I had some indeed technical problems.
Oh, but I can already see you. Okay, just go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me then.
Okay.
Oh no, the best thing is then I should have done something differently. I should have gone back with the presentation, of course, just a moment.
Well, when you're looking for the presentation, maybe I can already start. And first of all, thank you very much, Kadi and Arthur, for making this possible. It's really a great pleasure to cooperate with you, Arthur from Ecopreneur and MBO Nederland, and also with Kadi from the Estonian Responsible Business Forum to promote a circular economy. My name is Alice Droogmans and I'm responsible for international new business development. And let me give you a brief introduction on WeSustain. What you see around the slide, WeSustain is a German company. And as Arthur already mentioned, we have developed the online Circularity Check tool for Ecopreneur. WeSustain, as a German software provider, offers software solutions to manage all aspects of sustainability and ESG, sustainable finance. The company was founded back in 2010, and in the meantime, we have more than 700 clients that work with our software solutions. We have clients from all kinds of sectors, from all kinds of sizes, SME, as well as listed companies, and quite some sector federations. Why we cooperate with Ecopreneur? So we from WeSustain, we think that, or we believe that smart digital solutions play a central role for an efficient and innovative and transparent sustainability management. And we are convinced sustainability, digitization and cooperation is key to fix climate change and to contribute to a resource efficient and just economy. And indeed, driven by the passion for sustainability and software, we are proud to support Ecopreneur and the circular economy. And that's why we supported Arthur and Ecopreneur and did the development of the online Circularity Check for free. And the idea is that as many companies and organizations can use the tool to assess how far they are with respect to the circularity. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I hand back to you, Arthur.
And where was I? Let me see. I was, I think, with this one. Yeah. So this is a graph that shows how also I personally see the circular economy, but this is shared more widely. We have now a linear economy with a linear system, but this is coming to an end. And to grow into a new economy, we have to make better use of raw materials, but that's not enough. You should go beyond optimization. You should do new economic models, and also that will then lead to sectoral and social transitions. Don't do that, then you will not continue with your company at some time. But this is the positive story, because if we do it, it is an enormous economic opportunity. So for the economy as a whole, it can lead to 2 million new jobs, and it can save up to an enormous 1.8 trillion per year for the EU. Resource resilience by saving resources and waste reduction. So that's enormous. And also at the company level, why are our 3,000 company members already doing this? Because it brings them more value. It brings them innovation, asset management, supply risk reduction, which was very important in COVID times. It still is important. Customer loyalty. And last but not least, staff motivation. Some companies really tell me that one of the nicest things about being, for instance, a cradle-to-cradle company is that the best people come to you. Can we please work for you? So enablers, what is enabling it? A few things. Collaboration, you cannot do it alone. Digital technology, entrepreneurship, and relevant for the check, ecological thinking. Ecological thinking has been implemented in the check. Also, a higher added value helps, makes it easier. Also, if you have a long technological life cycle, makes it easier. Regulation can be a trigger. And finally, knowledge is important. And also, that is why the circularity check can be a trigger. But for instance, also things like trainings on circular design, like the Dutch Circle program. Still, it's not easy. So we have identified many barriers. Our companies tell us many things, but the four most important ones now are a lack of demand pool for circular products and services. So mostly they're operating in niches. A lack of transparency through the value chain, and you will see that coming back in the check. And also for SMEs, access to funding, and again, the complexity of circular design. And that brings us to the question, okay, how do we measure circularity? Well, first of all, that's a very broad question, and it's being asked on all levels. So, for instance, at the level of the world economy or a country. But we decided to go for the product and service level because that is the level at which our companies are working on circularity. We have chosen for a strategic angle, so to say, perspective. So this is not going to ask you for the number of kilograms or the value in terms of euros of your product or service, but strategic questions. The target group in this case is SMEs, but there are also it's also possible to do it for a large company, or you can focus on, for instance, procurement officers or and then there are many requirements to measure it. I've listed them here, and I think that our check can meet all requirements, but you will have different tools. And I want to show this to you, because this may also be interesting for you after this presentation. There is a material circularity indicator from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And there is a circular economy toolkit from the TU Delft for products. There is a circular economy indicator prototype and a Cambridge circularity tool, also at the product level. The latter one is very user-friendly. Then at the company level, there is a circle assessment. So if you are interested to know how circular is my company with all its products and services, then you should try that one. And then Circular IQ is now working actually with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the WBCSD, and I've been also advising them on circular transition indicators. And for multinationals, that is now a very interesting tool available also. And then finally, in Germany, there's the VDI, resource efficiency tool, which is also aimed at SMEs, but then more for SMEs that are more incremental in their innovation and that are more interested in cost reduction. Very large group. Well, there are more, I will not mention them all, but there is also one for product subsidies. There is one for also at the EU level for that, one for banks and one for the building sector. But okay, so you came here for the circularity check, and I think that we should now start doing that one. First of all, Alice, did you see any questions in the chat so far? I cannot see the check right now.
No, so far all is fine, Atla.
Okay. Still, I would like to challenge the audience. Please do post some questions because it will make our discussion more interactive and more lively. So please feel free to post some questions and we can see how we can address them. Okay, so about the circularity check. As far as we know, it is the first complete strategic scan at the product or service level. And it's, like I said, it's meant for SMEs and companies, specifically for SMEs, as like a hands-on tool, because the existing scans at the time were so complicated to go through that few SMEs will probably have taken the time to walk through all those questions that were so difficult to answer. Special also about our check is that it contains several go, no-go questions. And that means that, for instance, if you do nothing on design, procurement and production, then you will get a 0 score, 0% circular for your final proposition for this product, even if you have done something on delivery, use and recovery. And this is the outcome of discussions that we had with our own companies, especially the advocacy group of Ecopreneur, because that's how they feel about it. If you don't do anything about one of these aspects, then you should first do something at least, and then you get your score back. So I already said, what is the outcome of this scan? It's a percentage, and I'll show you how this percentage is calculated. Also important is that it has a life cycle approach. Like I said, this is the way that companies think about the circular economy. So it starts with a proposition for a product or service, and then you have these 4 stages. Important is also that our discussions led to adding a 5th category, a 5th indicator, sustainability. So keeping the materials in the loop is not enough. If you, for instance, do that by emitting a lot of CO2, then you're still not sustainable. So sustainability is also assessed with several questions. A very positive aspect of the circularity check is, at least in how it is set up, that there are many ways to become circular. So there are maybe questions that do not apply to you, or you haven't even thought about it, but then there are other things which you may have done or are very easy for you to do, and then you get a higher percentage with them. Also, energy aspects are included. You will see various questions. Are you using renewable energy? Because that is the way that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and also Ecopreneur thinks about it. You should switch to renewable, meaning solar or wind or something like that. And also social aspects are included, but not very extensively, but it at least reflects that we think about sustainability as people, planet, and profit. It has been based on 2 earlier pilots, so I also personally visited 11 SMEs in the Netherlands and walked through the draft questionnaire, and then it was implemented with all the improvements. And by now we have 500 plus users. So now I also switch, look into my other screen to see what's on the screen in more detail. This is, yeah.
May I have, there is one question we should answer, I think, right now.
Yes.
Before we dive in, and that's the question, how does the circularity check position itself next to the previous mentioned? So maybe you can briefly reply on this one.
Yes, thank you for that question. And if I then go back to this very slide, so
yes.
Here you see that I've made in red how I think that we position ourselves. Others are, for instance, aiming at the company level. That is, for instance, what the WBCSD is doing. And others are just looking at products. We are looking also products and services. We are cross-sectoral. So in whichever sector you are working, you can still do the check. And other checks are, for instance, only for the construction sector. Then it's also important that this one is strategic, more, with like soft questions, and in contrast with, for instance, again, the one from the WCSD that is asking you for the kilograms of recycled materials via your company. Then also the target group is different, because much attention in overall is going to multinationals, because everybody wants, of course, scale for the circular economy. But innovation is normally coming from SMEs, from the front runners. So that's why we focused on SMEs. And finally, this one is systemic. We try to incorporate all aspects of circularity and not leave out some aspects that are maybe harder to calculate. So I think that is more or less how it is positioned. Okay, there are no more further questions, and I'll go back to the questionnaire, what it looks like. So you see all kinds of questions, and hoping it works, we'll just in a few minutes enter also the circularity check online. So for instance, you see here a question: do product or packaging or service infrastructure contain toxic materials? And then also saying that it's not relevant if the products have at least the bronze label for cradle to cradle. And then you can here fill in your answer with change or yes, toxic materials may be present. The identifier is not relevant for you. That's just to keep track of it in the system. There is an explanation on which you can click to get more information, explanation about this question, why it is relevant and what is meant. You can upload some evidence, and that may be relevant if you're working with a team within your company. because you can have within one account, you can ask for more people to access that account. And if you're done, you can make the final one, the status one, you can make it green so that you know that is finished. And then I want to show you also a bit of what is behind it. So this is just a snapshot of the final presentation, sorry, the final Excel sheet that entered the WeSustain team when they programmed it. And so here you see a question, for instance, question 31, to what extent are materials used during delivery of the product or service, are they being reused or collected for recycling? And then you see, in this case, 4 possible answers. The first one is there are no established processes. You get 0%. The second one, materials used is minimized and something else. Then you get 50%. Now, if you're doing even more, then it says on top of materials use minimization and established recovery value chain, the waste materials are clearly labeled. Then you get 75%. And then finally, there is almost or no waste from delivery. So this concerns the delivery part of the proposition. And then you get 100%. So that is the way that the questionnaire has been set up. For each question, you can get between 0% if you're doing nothing, and 100% if you're doing everything possible. And depending on that, you get scores for this question. And then the system automatically calculates if you've done enough questions. So what is your score on the various indicators? And you get it presented on your screen at the bottom then in various ways. You see a total score. So this is just a virtual company, non-existing company with 40%. And then for the design, procurement and manufacturing, you get 43%. For delivery, it got 39%. For the use phase, 29, only 7 for recovery, so almost nothing is done to keep things in the loop. A very high score for sustainability. And by the way, this is a general picture. For sustainability, you're either doing nothing or you go up very easily. Does not mean that it's very circular, but it does help, of course. At the right, you see then the total score. It's the same score, but then in the spider diagram. Again, you see a high score for sustainability and a very low one for recovery. And at the bottom, you see split out 3 aspects of the first indicator. At the left, in blue, you see design. Then in green, you see procurement. And in yellow, you see manufacturing. This is to give you more information on why you have this 43% for score indicator 1. Because this can give you feedback on how to proceed and make things more circular. So, by the way, are there any questions about this, Alice, about these indicators?
Not about indicators, but I would like to give you anyhow one question which I think is important for some of the participants, and it's about the question is about why you test the check with SMEs, because it feels a bit like running in circles. SMEs want to know whether they are a circular, asking them about what circularity means may not be very helpful in that respect. So I think it's important that we clear that one.
Yeah, well, let me answer that. The type of SMEs that I visited were a very specific type. They were the SMEs that were known to the network organization in that part of the Netherlands that were not yet active on circularity, but were very interested. They really were on the verge of wanting to work with circular economy and with circular business models. And that is exactly the group for which this circularity check can have the most benefits. Also, it's maybe it's very important to distinguish between very different types of SMEs. On the one hand, you have these front runners in the membership of Ecopreneur, and they are already doing it. For them, it may be interesting to do the check and see that they have a very high score. Although in some cases, for instance, one company in Germany is doing everything on reused clothes. And for them, the score did not really add very much because they were only going for the reuse part, and there are only very few questions about that. So the most important thing is for companies that are not very circular yet, but are very interested. And that's the largest group, because about 60 or 70% of SMEs is not doing anything in this part yet. And about 3% are the front runners, and the rest is in between.
Okay, thank you. Then maybe another question I would like to bring up here is, what labels do you mean? You spoke in your example of a bronze label.
Yeah, that was referring to the cradle-to-cradle system. So
Yeah.
the cradle-to-cradle, that is a whole system of circular design, and that gives certificates that are ordered from, I don't even know exactly which all metals there are, but it goes up to gold. And so if you have the gold label, then, or no, the platinum even, then you can skip many questions, because that was also one of the reasons that we changed after the first draft. Some of our companies did not want to use the scan because there were so many questions that they had already answered elsewhere. So we changed it in such a way that if you have, for instance, a certificate for the cradle to cradle, you can skip many questions.
Okay. Good.
So how can you use it? Well, first of all, you can use it for profit purposes, if you're a consultant, or of course, if you're an SME, but also for non-for-profit purposes. For instance, if you're working for an authority trying to accelerate the circular economy in your country. There is no license or fee involved. SMEs can, of course, use it for their own product or service. And for consultants, they can, for instance, use it as a free online tool to advise your SME, but also to advise a large company client. Again, there the important question is, are they interested to start working with circularity? Also, the many students are already using it. I sometimes get suddenly 20 registration requests at the same time, and that's always from some kind of university or high school. So that is also an application that is being used. Trainers could use it in a workshop, and also procurement officers could use it to raise the awareness of your suppliers. You could ask your suppliers to do the check, but it's very important that you cannot use this one for selecting specific suppliers, because that's not how the check was designed, and it's not been externally validated, and some of the questions contain numbers that are not based on external checks. Also the same for investors. You can use it to get a rough idea of the circularity of a certain proposition, but it's only a rough idea, and you would have to go deeper into the proposition with other means to get a real good idea. Then I would like to enter, first of all, not yet this part. I want now to really close the presentation and go into the check. So let me try to do that, and then open this window and move that here. Yeah, see that everybody can see it. So this is, again, so now we're in the check, and this is my own personal test account with a company called Circular Future. And for those of you that have not been in this environment yet, I want to explain everything as good as I can. So first you have here the home button that brings you here, and then you can see some assessments. For instance, there is here a manufacturer, and that is a product, and you see that there's 59% progress already, and you see then here the questions. So this is the questionnaire that you then open, and you can then walk through the questions. I'll do that in a minute. You can also look at evaluation. There again, you can choose here with this one which test company you want to see. Again, I can choose the manufacturer, and then here you get the specific outcome for this test company. There's also a part with settings and users. So here you see my name and address, and you can also have more users by asking for that. And then WeSustain and Ecopreneur will make sure that you get more users. Let me go back. So if I go to this manufacturer, I think that the manufacturing companies are the most interesting in this respect, because they have to answer all the questions. For instance, I also interviewed a cafe, and cafes have a much shorter list, because then you can, for instance, fill in out here a service. And if you do that, then the whole list will be refreshed, and then you will have a much shorter one. So that is the way that is evolves. I still, by the way, I see that right now it's still showing a product, but that we also had that during the test phase. In some cases, you have to use the refresh button for your web browser to really make sure that you see the latest version of what you're entering. If I go to the bottom, by the way, I can also collapse many things. So then you can also, you see first you go through a few questions about yourself, basically, and what type of proposition, so is the product or service. And then you go through the indicators. Indicator 1, the design phase. Indicator 2, the delivery. Indicator 3, use, then recovery and sustainability. And I want to say that delivery is like unconventional. Many discussions, I think most discussions about circularity do not talk about delivery. But in terms of a business model, it's a very important phase, and you can do a lot to minimize waste and emissions. Then, if you go to the scores, they're at the bottom, and there you see for this specific case, the score indicators. And if everything is complete, then you can also see the score here. So maybe go back to expand all. What I would like to do is show a few questions. Way too many, of course, to go through, but just a few questions to show the how it works. Now, first is the first one. To what extent have all materials present in the product and packaging and or used for the service been listed and categorized belonging to the technocycle and or biocycle? Well, it's already a long question. It means, first of all, that we're looking at the materials. That's very important. The question behind this is there a bill of materials? And also, if there is a bill of materials, have you already determined if these materials are in the biocycle or in the technocycle? And that's very important, because if you have one of them, you can do recycling or you can do a cascade. But if you have a mixture, you should pay special attention to the sorting. And there you have the answers. There's no materials listing. Well, and you know from the Excel sheet, then you get no points. But you can also say 100% of the materials has been listed and categorized. And that's the best score for this question, I mean, with number 7. And then if you go down, you see many more questions. For instance, here, has the product or service been designed or redesigned for circularity? And then you get all kinds of, I don't know, just yes or no. But then if you look here, there's a question about cradle to cradle. And I think now I have to go make sure that it's now still a product. Maybe refresh the page. Because then you can have many more answers in this question. Let me see if it's this one. No, it's not that one. But anyway, this is the way that you use it. And here again, you see the bronze label. Has the product or service been redesigned for optimal use, reuse, and recycling? And this is a different one. You can also have different answers. And so if you click on it, then you see you can have no, or you can have a yes for improved waste separation, and you can also add several choices. And in this case, you can get a low percentage per question, and the total number of checks makes it to a 100%. Any questions so far, Alice?
some questions in, but I think there were some questions on the weighting of the indicators.
Yeah.
And then on the same indicators, there's a specific questions. What are sustainable indicators? As this is very broad, so this fits now in what you are presenting at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, about the weighting of the questions, we've really thought a long time about it, but we've decided to not do any weighting so far in this phase. If there is going to be a next one, then we could do more weighting. So because it's possible in the form in the calculation system. For instance, you could decide to spend more weight on the question about the business model. At the same time, this is all qualitative, and that makes it hard to put specific weight on specific questions. The way that is how it is actually being calculated is that for each indicator individually, all the answers are just averaged. So for each question you get a percentage, and they are averaged out. So that's, and then the total circularity is the average of the 5 indicators. And if a question is not applicable for your company, you don't get 0% or 100%. The whole question is just ignored for you. So that is the way that with WeSustain in many iterations we have come to this system. Maybe let me. We come to the sustainability by itself. Let me just add that for procurement, that's the second phase. That is very important, because for every company has to source their materials in a sustainable way, and also a cafe or a restaurant, for instance, for them, a sustainable business model has immediate consequences for procurement. So this is the reason that we have many questions about procurement, including many options on how you can do circular procurement. So also you can use the check to get some ideas about the next level. For consultants, also interesting, when I used the system for my pilot in Friesland, I used actually still the Excel file. And from the Excel file, I generated a list of recommendations by taking the next level in each question. And so that is not possible, unfortunately, at the moment, because we can not get a report out of the system. But you can play with the questions interactively. And that is the way why you can see and discuss with your SME client, for instance, this is the next level. Maybe you could try this and that and get a higher score. Then the manufacturing, well, I think that speaks more or less for itself. So you see, for instance, a question, how much material value is lost in the production and the value chain. There you see the question about renewable energy, recycling processes, water also. Then about the delivery, there you see the question over what distance do you transport your products and services for delivery? And that is not a topic that is widely discussed normally, but it is very relevant, and it gives a large advantage for SMEs, because many of them operate over a distance of at most 150 kilometers. So that gives you a high score. Renewable energy again, packaging, and then the use phase, and that is a very interesting one, because there you see the question, which is I think the longest, for which part of the sales of your product or service do you use at least one of the following business models? And there you see a list which should cover, I think, all the business models that are not already being used previously, and you get a percentage for that. Another question is about repair and maintenance, if you facilitate that, and there we used levels from the European, the representative of a large company that has developed their own levels of maintenance and repair services. Do you have a direct relation with the user? So that's more or less a yes, no, but with something in between. And then we come to indicator 4, the recovery. that is really going about, do you have a system for take-back management? What about recycling? What does it do? So not just about did you design for it, but do you actually do it? Then some questions about microplastics or oxo-degradable plastics, which should not enter the environment. Something about biomaterials, and it's good to know that biomaterials are not used in the same way as the techno cycle, because there are sustainability issues connected to biomaterials. So the questions really try to find out if you do sustainable sourcing. And then we come to indicator 5, about which a question was, well, first some very negative sounding questions like, has your company been publicly accused? Also, then I think the most important question, which is answered a lot, is to what extent is your company dedicated to sustainability? And this also contains different levels of how you can show this. This may also be the first one. For instance, if you open a website and you say, this is our sustainability strategy, that already gives you points. Then there's the one about the social costs from negative impacts of the new business model. Well, this has to do with the negative impacts of some very disruptive business models on sharing platforms. For instance, Airbnb is absolutely successful in sharing, but at the same time it had negative consequences at the city level. So regulation is then needed to make it really sustainable. That's why this question is there. Let me see, what else shall I? No, then there are some some exit questions and something about self-audits for fundamental human rights, but this is all very general. And I hope that answers the question about the sustainability.
Yeah, Arthur, maybe there is in this context another question I would like to address.
Yeah.
On the sustainability, and that is, what if the product hasn't been redesigned for sustainability material-wise, but has been designed from the start for a long-term use? For instance, here is the example given of a Miele washing machine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a very good question, and that's also, I was also, when preparing for this workshop, I already started correcting some of the phrasing. So WeSustain already corrected one of them where it said redesign, but it's not just redesign, it's also be designed. So if you have designed it for long use, then you get extra points somewhere in the beginning. So that's in the design phase of the questionnaire. There is a question that has to do with exactly this aspect. I'm not sure which one it is. This is for optimal use. Well, here it is. Has the product or service been redesigned, also redesigned for prolonged product lifetime and or improved functionality? And that is two questions in one, because from the point of view of circularity, it's equally important if you make a product, give it a very long lifetime, like indeed a washing machine can last very long. That is, by the way, one of the best things you can do to make something circular and to make it resource efficient. At the same time, if you give something an improved functionality, if you can do 2, 3, or 5 things with something, like an electronic device that you first needed several devices, that's also a major improvement. So that is why these are in one question, but you get real points for that, yes.
Okay, thank you. And in this context, one more question, and then you can continue. That is, what is the check based on in terms of evaluating the sustainability advantage achieved? Also ISO, life cycle assessment, planetary boundaries, cradle to cradle.
Yeah, Well, the cradle to cradle, like I already mentioned, is integrated because you get a higher percentage for that if you use cradle to cradle. By the way, it's not just cradle to cradle. There are also several other strategies. But this one, if you look at the performance, then this has been included, especially in the recovery phase. So here see you some questions about how efficient are recycling capabilities of materials after first product use. And there you have to answer the system is in place for there's no system in place, or they can be recycled but only through downcycling, or they can be recycled and kept at high value, or the best one, design out waste initiatives are in place, so there is virtually no waste. So that is one of the questions where the impact of all your efforts are measured, and also where you get maybe some ideas on what your next step could be. But it is fundamentally different, I must say, from other circularity indicators like the one from the World Business Council. They look very much at the materials circulation. The outcome there is more or less what is the percentage of the materials in your company that is recycled, and then you get a higher rating. But again, then their system ignores things like chemical pollution. And that's what we do not. We take chemical pollution also into account in one of the questions about the design. And also water can also be very impactful, is also tackled in one of the questions. One of the questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Arthur. You have time for one more question, then I drop over one. And is it possible for companies to easily prove the answer to the question? The circularity check could be used to determine whether a company has access to circular public funding or not. This is more a general one.
Yeah, well, that is, I think, something that you should be careful with, because, like I said, this check is not externally validated. It could be, but so far we lack the funds and also have not taken any initiative. And also, yeah, there was some interest at first, but nothing came out of this. So there is no external party that is using it. This could be done. So if there is somewhere an organization that is interested to use the circularity check to do verifications, yeah, that is possible. But then, indeed, it should be coupled to international standards and to externally validated sources. But that is a next step. We would be very happy to work with organizations to do so.
Okay, thank you. Good. Okay. I think for now, some of the questions I see here, I suppose you're gonna answer following your presentation, I think.
Yeah, okay. Well, actually, if I could also answer them now, because I've covered already all the aspects of the circularity check in main lines. And otherwise, I could, of course, just go up and down again, and could also maybe show some different how it is for services. Yeah. But if there are questions, I would be very much interested to answer them right now.
Very good. Then it's close to the question you answered a minute ago. It's mentioned that the tool is a self-assessment and therefore it can be only used internally, but how do you see, Arthur, the broader use in the market and the avoidance of marketing using the base outcome?
Well, we have done no assessment of the use, and so far with 500, well, like I said, it's 500 plus now users. We see very different users. Like I said, I mentioned students. We see also SMEs. I also see some very large, well-known multinationals. but the feedback that we have received so far is rather limited. It's also very positive, but it doesn't contain much information. So what we mostly hear is thank you for putting so much information in the check, and it's very interesting. And it has given us an idea of all the aspects that you have to encounter when you start working towards circular models. So that is more or less the feedback that we have had. And so we have not received feedback that somebody has been using it for procurement selection or something. So that is more or less what I can say about it. And also we've not done an assessment of it, because that would be a major exercise, and we have no budget for that at the moment available.
Exactly. And in this context, we have another question from a participant that said, I have started seeing some methodologies to measure circularity in specific industries and for specific products. And what do you think, Arthur, are the downsides of specific or general methodologies?
Of specific or general methodologies?
Yes.
Maybe the person that asked that question can explain a bit better what was meant.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I will ask. Then we take the other one. Then I go back into the content of a question. It's a question about the materials, saying that 100% of the materials you mentioned there, does it also mean additives and auxiliaries?
Yes, it does. But of course, in terms of quantities, these things like additives are very small. But indeed, if you know that they're in there, you should list them in your bill of materials. Yes.
Okay. And that's the same for packaging too, huh? You mentioned.
That's right, because packaging is, as far as I know, everywhere is mentioned specifically, so that you not only look at your product, for instance, a detergent, but also at the packaging, like plastic packaging.
Okay, thank you. Then let me have a look. Some more questions are coming in. Could the tool be applied to assess circularity of a curriculum of a university of arts?
No, I don't think so. No, because a University of Arts does not have a business model. It's not a commercial company. The only thing that you could use it for is, in my opinion, to look at procurement. So you could look at the questions for circular procurement and get some ideas out of it, how you could do that in a more sustainable way. But for the rest, yeah, your services are really very like too abstract, I think, for this check, because it is still mostly to do with the materials that we try to keep into the loop.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, back to the materials, I have to refer to the question before, the one of the University of Arts. It's a further question on auxiliaries. They are not in the products. They are not auxiliaries, or they're not in the product. Recycling art, that's the question. Maybe, yeah, this person can specify the question to us. Yeah. Because that's not clear to me either.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I think that's mainly what I can see here. Okay.
In that case, then maybe this is the best time is to go. Let me first check in my presentation how many slides I have left, because I'm not really sure. That one is here. I think that we have. Well, we are already in the interactive part. Yeah, so we are really right here now, and also the online demonstration. So we have time, and in that case, I propose that I indeed just walk along a few more of the questions.
Okay.
Because they will show more aspects of the check and of circularity.
Okay, in the meantime, the person who asked about the auxiliaries, they specified, does one need to mention the auxiliaries in the VOM?
The auxiliaries.
The auxiliaries in the BOM.
In the bill of materials.
Yes.
Oh, that is a very good question that I would have to come back to later, because I'm not sure. No. But on the other hand, this is a self-assessment. So that's a question that is then triggered by the circularity check. And as a matter of fact, this is not specified in the circularity check, so it doesn't make any difference for the percentage that you get. And it may be important for your company on how to reach real circularity. If you do that or not, then you should ask yourself the questions: are these important for the circularity, or is it maybe not very relevant for the circularity of my product or service?
Okay, thank you. And we have another question coming on packaging for the food industry.
Yeah.
For the food industry, you need to use virgin materials that come in contact with the product.
Yeah.
What's better, according to your model, have reusable product which needs to be washed with hot water and detergent, or to make it from a material that can easily be food stock for nature again, but needs to be manufactured as well, and costing energy, transportation, and so on?
Yeah, those are the real questions what you have to do in real life. So that is, so what I ask you to do is just put the two variations that you propose into the checklist and see what it brings you, and let me know. But at the same time, it's indeed very important to solve these issues. And I know from one of the companies in the Ecopreneur group that they also have this issue where they have detergents, and they package it in 100% recycled and 100% recyclable plastic bottles. But they are suffering from the restrictions in the EU for food, for food contact. And that is, of course, a real concern, because we cannot have that the additives in the plastics come into contact with food. So yeah, this is like a typical dilemma. But for instance, it would be very interesting if the sector would somehow agree to only use plastics that are food grade, because then you would not have these additives. And for many applications that may be possible. So I think those are the kinds of out-of-the-box thinking that the circularity check is trying to trigger, so that you, with your value chain partners and the sector, can try to go further and solve these issues.
Okay, yeah, and then we had also an answer to this question from one of the participants. He suggested that a life cycle assessment would also provide the answer to the question on packaging.
I think that's a very good one. And also, one of the questions in the list is, did you perform a life cycle assessment? And if you are multinational, that's a mandatory question. If you didn't do it, you get 0 points. On the other hand, if you're an SME, you're excused, because in many cases it has not been done, and this can also be expensive for your specific sector. So, but yes, life cycle assessments are providing much information, so much even that in the opinion of Ecopreneur, we would like that every company, including SMEs, except maybe the very smallest ones, do a mandatory gate-to-gate life cycle assessment about their energy use and their use of resources. And then if you can add up all the partners in the chain, you get a real idea of what's going on. Yeah.
Well, in addition to that, further question on minimizing materials use could be no commercial value in gained by recycling. How do you deal with this?
If you minimize the
materials used, no commercial value is gained by recycling. How do you deal with it?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I understand it completely, but well, minimization of materials is always good. It's one of the first things that many companies try to do, and it's also good because if you have less materials used, you have less CO2 emissions from the production and the mining, and that's a very big fraction. So that's always good. If you then look at minimizing that, well, that's a first step, but you can only come so far. And then, of course, what you keep then, you should try to reuse first. And for instance, for textiles, reusing has a 3 times higher CO2 reduction than recycling. So please always start with the possibilities for reusing the material. And then if there's no other way and you've exhausted maintenance and sharing and reuse, yeah, then you end up with recycling. And then, yeah, that's the best you can do. And about the commercial value, that's also an issue, because in many cases, the collection, sorting, it costs money. And for instance, right now in the plastics industry, virgin plastics are very cheap because of the low oil prices. And this is something that should be corrected by governments. For instance, there's now the new idea for a virgin materials tax. And so that would make virgin plastics more expensive than recycled plastics. And in that case, you could make a business case out of the use of recycled plastics. And then you can also increase the recycling.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Well, it seems that we have participants from South America, because here's a question coming in saying, since the tool is uses EU information, can Circularity Check provide a baseline if it is applied in SMEs from South America?
Yeah, a very good question. Yes, I think so, because it does contain some EU information, but as far as I remember, this is also concerning the questions about the distance. So if you interpret the distance from which you are importing or exporting to your own region, then you could have the same information. And it's meant to just indicate circularity in general.
Okay, thank you. And then we have the question we asked up front. It has been rephrased now, saying, do you think, Arthur, that this tool can apply to all products, including agriculture?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, there's no limitation there, because there are several questions, a whole stream of questions concerning the biocycle and cascading. So it has been designed to cover also the biocycle, although we have more details in the technocycle, because that has to do with the network of Ecopreneur and our focus on the industrial products. And only recently there is a group of companies from the Ecopreneur membership that is now also asking if we can start to do work on the agro part of the cycle. But yes, it is there.
Very good. Yeah, so I have here another question in general on the tool. I see if there are some content questions. If not, I would pick the one on the tool, because this is a very nice question for the future. And the question is, what are the developments? Could you have just 1 minute? Maybe this one would fit. Question, could you or have you further adapt the question for service, because some questions are possible answers are still much framed as targeting a product. We was set in April, so this is still on the content in the tool. We take this one at first. Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me just give you my own experience. When I ran through the checks in a service company, like I said, it was one cafe which was switching to more the biological part, and so they were interested, but they were also very open for more information. I have no problems with walking through the list, but what I did then, I went there, I was in their premises, and I walked with them through the list. So I phrased all the questions, and I talked with them about, okay, how can this question apply to your company? And that's also why I think that there is a very positive role that consultants and other accelerators can play, because you can interpret the question based on your knowledge of circularity and then translate it while you're talking with the company person, with the experts of the company, to their specific products and services and their language and their way of thinking about their own business. So and that is why I learned from this pilot that it can work very well. We also added these information bullets, like I said, like for instance here. There's an information bullet, so yeah, you see here that you have some explanation, and that is also what you can use. But you're right that in general, and that's true for the whole circular economy discussion, we're still talking a lot about products and a lot about materials. So that is where we have detailed levels available. And for the surface level, I was very happy that I could at least use the surface levels for repair and maintenance that were just developed by a multinational. But that was very hard to get by. Yes.
Yeah, we have a very interesting remark on your answer. Is this means that the consultant may also have an impact on the score?
That's true. That's absolutely true, and also in a positive sense, of course, because if you can bring the company on new ideas, then the score will go up. But you also see indeed that this is still subjective, and that's why I early already indicated that you should not use it for selection in procurement or investments.
Okay. Another question coming in regarding a specific tool for restaurants or cafes. Do you know of any specific tools for restaurants or cafes?
No, I'm not aware of any specific tools for that sector. No. Actually, I'm only aware of a specific tool for the construction industry. And there's a clear need for instance, for the food industry, but I'm not aware of any real initiatives.
Yeah, because this is a question we had on the agriculture sector. It's from the same participant saying that you can use the tool for the agriculture sector, but do you see it integrated in the same tool or segregated in a separate tool?
Yeah. I think that it would be, if you want to move forward based on this check, I think it would be very interesting to see if you can develop a specific tool for instance, food, based on these questions, but then leave out a lot of them which are not relevant. So that would be a very interesting way forward.
Yeah, very good. So far, then I would say, looking at the time, or we still have 50 minutes to go, but we have here a question in general on the tool itself. Arthur, what are the development plans for the tool? Is there any plan to increase the scale of the tool? Meaning, can it be applied to bigger ecosystem, like a region, in a city, in the future, like materials or products, etc., are moving in and out a region or being consumed in a region? So here is given, for example, a municipality wants to use it to assess the circularity of a city, to see what are the main problem points to improve first, or is it only meant for a small scale now for the time being?
Okay, well, the first part of the question, what are our plans? Well, yes. Our plans are to improve the system in terms of user friendliness. Also, we would like to make it able to get reports out of that. Yeah. Also, this could lead to automatic reports coming out and giving the company feedback on what to do next, but we lack the budget for that. And so if anybody of you has any ideas on what can we do with it to make it better or for different usages, it would be very interesting, but there would also be a need for investments for that. Now I forgot the second part of the question. The last part was about, the city level. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, for the city level, you can better take another check, because there are other checks. I think that you then should look into the circle economy as an organization. They have the use for at the company level, but I think they also have scans at the city level. So please look at the Circle Economy website if you can find something there, or otherwise they can refer you to another organization working with circular cities.
Okay, very good. Yeah, then another question coming in. How does the check tool reveal the responsibility of the producer?
Mm-hmm.
That revealed, yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, I think that it does not really reveal it, but it's meant for producers. So if a producer starts walking through this checklist and then thinking, okay, how can I use these notions to improve the circularity of my product or service? I think that's the moment when a producer starts taking responsibility. And if you take the notion of extended producer responsibility as a principle, yeah, that is more aimed at financial incentives and recycling rates that are mandatory, for instance. So that is not included in the check. This is more bottom up about taking responsibility.
Yeah. Thank you. Then one more question on the language. Is the circularity check currently only available in English?
Yes, online, yes. Although we do have the complete Dutch translation because that was used in the Netherlands. Also, we recently found out that it's really cheap by now to make a translation to any language if you use DeepL. So if anybody is interested to translate it into another language, that would in itself not be such an issue. But then again, there should be some talk with WeSustain, because then you would have to implement this in your system, and that would take some effort. And again, yeah, so that's more or less what is at hand.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I think so far we have answered all the questions. Yeah. What I see, the most important ones. Yes. If I lost something or missed something out, please put them again in the chat. But what I see, I think we took most of them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe then, because we're also nearing the end of this webinar, let me just walk one more time through the questions and maybe mention a few of them that were not yet discussed, but that are also indicated, and then round off with some final remarks. So first of all, I was thinking about the question with the scarce materials. I'm not sure exactly where it is now, but I think in the circularity of the design, there is one question about the scarcity of the materials. And that is relevant because yeah, some materials are really getting scarce, and that is also an aspect of circularity. Because if you are using scarce materials for your product, for instance, there is some scarce materials in wind farms, yeah, then it's or in electric cars, then yeah, this you have to be aware of that, and so that is one of the things that you also score on. So that's one aspect. The procurement, I think I already said this, but you see here some detailed questions. Have you implemented green procurement? How much for the input is coming from recycled materials? That's a recycled content, very important indicator. And here you see it, does the product or service contain scarce materials? And then you see what the scarce materials are. And so that is also included. Ocean plastics are mentioned, but you don't get many points for that. And you see the geographical scale where you purchase. Then the delivery, just to give you just some idea, this is also referring to the distance, but also to the packaging that you use, and also to the waste that you produce or that you just have avoided. The use questions, I think we already walked through. Yes, this recovery. That's maybe interesting that this is about what was reclaimed. And indeed, here it's about the EU. So here is reference to the EU. But if you're in South America, then maybe you should just say read South America here, and then the question remains the same. I think that more or less covers it. Yeah.
Then, Arthur, as we have quite some consultants here among the participants, what do you think from the timing here? How long does it take if you go through with your client to do the check? If you can give an indication on time.
Yeah. Well, that is in my experience, it's about 1 hour with a service company and 1.5 hours with a manufacturing company. But during the last workshop that we had in Amsterdam, Alice, in January 2019, we got feedback from the users, and they indicated that was from a manufacturing company. They had spent all in all about 3 hours because they also had to consult within the company some experts who know some details about specific parts of the process or the product. So that's about the time that it takes to walk through this checklist, and that is, I think, considerable less than from some of the other checks available.
And I think some of the questions, it really is also gives room for discussion on different views as well. Yeah.
That could be, but of course, yeah. But that is not the time. Maybe that is maybe after you filled out the check.
Exactly.
That is, I think, the way that I used it. First, you walk through the questionnaire, thinking about, okay, so what is the answer right now for the product or service that you have already on the market, or the one that you are developing, and then after the complete check has been evaluated, then you go to the bottom of the screen, and then you go to the scores that you have. Then you can go back, and of course, then you can take as long as you want, because then you are more or less designing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's from the chat. As far as I see, we managed to answer almost all the questions. If we miss something out, please drop us an email. You will find our contact details in the presentation deck.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, Alice, I think that we shall conclude. So, as far as we are concerned, the circular economy offers many opportunities, and the circularity of products and services determines the long-term prospects of a company. This check is the first complete scan at the product or service level. It was tested on 11 SMEs and also before that on several large companies. It's available online for free and for all circular purposes. And please send us your feedback so that we can improve and maybe get some future plans on how to move on with it. So with that, I would like to conclude this webinar. Thank you very much for attending and for your questions. I just hope that this has inspired you to work on with striving towards a low carbon circular economy. Thank you very much, and also thank you, Alice, and also Kari Kenk, and all the people, especially from Estonia, who are attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.